Josh James, are you Banksy?
I've done that.
What, you're Banksy?
Yeah, mate.
And you meant to be from Bristol?
Nah, some journo got the wrong end of the stick. They asked me what my favourite thing was in England, and I told them Bristol cities.
As in titties?
Love titties.
Am I? No, I'm not Banksy, unfortunately. Although I think I've got a good idea about who it is. I wouldn't tell people back home. It's a bit like Father Christmas. Once you find out who it is, you're like, oh, it's not that exciting anymore. But it's certainly not me. I mean, I do a few characters. I used to do the East End hipster, who was like this real lefty social justice warrior, you know, lives in the East End, but really went to private school.
Oh, look at me, I'm wearing unprescribed glasses so that I can see all the injustice in the world.
Like the grafter, who's basically like this, almost like a drug dealer from the home counties, you know, wears all like this nouveau riche clothing, like, you know, Givenchy, whatever you call it, Balenciaga, you know.
Got a sleeve, yeah. Not just any sleeve though. It all means stuff.
I'd say I do those characters because they're quite synonymous of places where I've grown up and stuff like that. I can honestly say I've been doing it 10 years now, but as time goes on, you know, you go through them times of it going amazing, so that gives you confidence. But then you also go through times of it going terribly. And you also learn, you know, from your mistakes. But I can certainly see, you know, the average person, oh, God, how'd you do that? But, you know, it's like anything. If you do it week in, week out for 10 years, then, you know, it's just what you do, really.
Right, welcome back to the podcast, Stephen Sully's Study. I've got a wicked guest in front of me, Mr. Josh James. This has been a long time coming, mate. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the gallery, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for inviting me along. I've loved looking at all the art and you telling me all the stories behind them, and yeah, it's great. The
first serious question that I've got written down here is, Josh James, are you Banksy?
Am I? No, I'm not Banksy, unfortunately. Although I think I've got a good idea about who it is. I got told by another comedian, who's, I mean, I don't want to give him away, actually, the comedian, but he's got some sort of connection to him, and he seems to think he knows who it is. So I wouldn't tell people back home, because it's a bit like Father Christmas. Once you find out who it is, you're like, oh, it's not that exciting anymore. Yeah. But it's certainly not me.
Fair dues, mate. So, I believe one of the most scary things for a human being to do until you conquer it is public speaking. So, in a way, what you do is public speaking, but heightened even further. It's on steroids. You have to do public speaking, but then to add narrative story and deliver world-crunching, funny jokes. How do you do it?
Well, there are probably some people that will say that my jokes are not all that funny because it's subjective, isn't it? But no, do you know what? It's like any job doing stand up. It's like the more you do it, the better you get. And of course, when I first started, you know, it's really nerve-wracking. I mean, I went to a wedding on Saturday, and just watching people get up in front of, say, 100 people or whatever, and say sort of thank yous and stuff like that, they're a nervous wreck. And it's a nice reminder of just, oh yeah, that's when you don't get up, you know, 3-4 times a week doing what we do. Yeah, it is. It's a big thing for people, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I can honestly say I've been doing it 10 years now, and it's like any job. I mean, you think when your first day of any job, how nervous you was, because you don't really know what you're doing. But as time goes on, you know, you go through them times of it going amazing, so that gives you confidence. But then you also go through times of it going terribly, and that also gives you confidence, because you think, oh well, that was, you know, especially when you first start doing stand up, you have some really rough times, you know, some like really really rough gigs, but that gives you confidence, because you're like, oh, what's the worst that can happen? You know, I'm still alive, and you also learn, you know, from your mistakes. But I can certainly see, you know, the average person, oh God, how'd you do that? But, you know, it's like anything. If you do it week in, week out for 10 years, then, you know, it's just what you do, really. And I got to a point now where I feel a lot more confident, and actually a lot more myself when I'm on stage now. You know, I think I find like now that I'm off stage, because I do that, I don't feel as need to be as like out there or centre of attention. I'm pretty happy just like being pretty chill, you know, because I do that, you know.
So I'm 38 years of age, almost 39, and it scares the shit out of me to even say that because I feel like my life is going before my eyes. I think you're about 28?
No, I'm glad you said that, mate. I'm 33.
33?
Yeah.
Okay, I must have read an old article and I
You
thought,
think-
yeah. I think it was when...
But also I've got a good skincare routine, you know what I mean? I think that, you know.
Exactly. I think I read, it must have been referencing when you won... Is it Essex Funniest Comedian or something
Essex
like that?
Comedian of the Year, that's what it was.
Yeah, and then they reference you at your age and then that stuck in my mind. But anyway, you're not quite as old as me, but you definitely know Lee Evans.
Yeah, Lee Evans.
He used to be... I think my taste in humour over time is slightly evolved, but I still appreciate exactly who he is and what he's achieved and what he's done. But he did... I remember watching an interview with him and he said... There is pressures being a comedian because every time you go to a party, every time you're introduced to a group of people, if you're down the pub or down a restaurant, people expect you to be really, really funny and deliver these jokes.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you have a pressure being funny to be funny all the time?
Do you know what? No, not at all, really. And I mean, I'm not that sociable, so I don't really have time. I don't, you know, I do my gigs and I've got my family. I've got to say, you know, my nights out now, they're nights in, really. You know, I like sort of watching. If I'm not gigging, I like sitting at home on the sofa watching a nice film, and then looking at everyone's Instagram stories, going, "Oh, that's nice. Oh, they look like they're having a good time," and that feels like a night out for me. But no, I don't really feel that pressure in everyday life. No, I mean, I think there are probably comedians that do. But I mean, certainly when what probably motivated me to get into the stand-up is because, you know, in my 20s and my late teens, I wanted to be as loads of lads do that are like us. They want to be the funny one, you know. They want to be the one that's cracking the jokes. And certainly when I was younger, that was definitely me. I don't feel as much. I mean, probably people around me might say different. But I don't feel the pressure as much now to be.
There must have been times where groups of people come over to you and go, "You're that guy off of X, you're the guy off of Instagram, you're the guy I've seen on stage. Please just tell me a joke."
Yeah,
have you ever been put on the spot like that?
Oh yeah, always. They go, "Oh, tell me a joke," and I tell them no, and and that's that. I mean, that's often what it is. There's few people. If someone clocks who you are, it's very rarely is it, "Oh, you're Josh James, blah, blah, blah." They'll go, "You're the geezer online, does the videos." And you're like, "Oh, yeah." You know, and of course your ego wants to be like, "Oh, well, you know, but I'm actually a stand-up comedian, blah, blah, blah." But you're just like, "Yeah, that's me, mate." the videos guy, that's me, yeah.
So, choosing this life of a stand-up comedian, I mean, it's not kind of something that schools promote. So how did you find yourself like a segue into that world?
Yeah, do you know what? It's just like we used to have a lot of tapes of Billy Connolly when I was younger in my house of his stand-up, and then also of a series called the World Tour of Scotland. And I think that was probably my first sort of motivating factor, really, watching Billy Connolly. Him talking a lot about as well, you know, I come from like a Catholic house, I'm Catholic, so I find a lot of that relatable. And that was probably the biggest sort of motivating factor. And then, you know, I always wanted to do it. So, I mean, I can remember as early as being like 10 years old, you know, saying to my dad, "I want to do stand-up comedy." And they took me to, when I was probably about 12, they took me to a Jongleurs. If you remember Jongleurs, they was a big, like, you know, comedy. I used to have comedy clubs all over the country, probably the biggest, you know. And when I was about 12, they took me there to one in Chelmsford. And there's a lot of people looking at me like, you know, should a kid be here? You know, some of the stuff they're talking about. But they really encouraged me to, I kept them talking about it and they took me along. And I can't remember the actor on, but I remember the last act, a guy called Ricky Grover. You ever heard of Ricky Grover?
I haven't.
Yeah, just hilarious. Like a legend of the circuit. He's been in, if you see him, he's been in loads of different things, but I just remember watching him thinking, God, this geezer is so funny, and no respite, just jokes. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And it took me till I was about 23 to start doing it, because I mean, sort of growing up where I grew up, to say you want to do something creative, or I was very conscious, didn't want to put myself out there like that. I was really worried about sort of what, appearance and what people might say and stuff like that. I sometimes think maybe if I grew up in maybe other places or in different environments, that would be more encouraged, and it would be more natural to say, oh yeah, I want to do something creative with my life, I want to do the performance. But it wasn't really, when I think about my mates or blokes coming out, when we come out of school, it was very much like the two options seemed to be get a trade, like plumber or something like that, or, if you can get a job in the city, like around Liverpool Street, God knows what, but if you could do something like that, that would be really good, And yeah, so I just sort of suppressed that. I was like, I really want to be a comedian, but that's a bit of a pipe dream, really. I don't know anyone that does it. I don't really know anyone that does a career that is more of a creative career, really. So yeah, when I left school, I went up to work in the city. And I've done that for a few years, and it was only until I got to about 23. I used to work not too far from around here, actually, just around the corner, and yeah, it didn't. I mean, my boss was such an arsehole. Can I swear on here?
Of course you can.
Yeah, he was a cunt, actually. He was a real cunt. And yeah, and I just thought, I'd worked really hard to get this job, and it was a decent job. And I remember getting the job, and my dad was really happy for me. He was like, oh, that's a really good job. And I didn't really have no reason to get it, I didn't have a university degree, nothing like that. I was just quite a good talker in the interviews, and I got the job. And it was about a year in that job. And yeah, it didn't work out for me, really. And I just thought, 23, not getting any younger, like you've always wanted to do the comedy, just go do it. You failed at something that you don't want to do, really. Go do it. You might as well fail at something you do want to do, And that's when I started doing the stand-up. And yeah, it's hard when you first start, but sort of chipped it away at it, worked hard at it, and yeah, doing okay now. Could be doing a little better, but doing all right, what I mean?
You are definitely doing good. I'm curious, you said something earlier that picked up on, I wanted to circle back to it. You hear rappers, singers, people predominantly in music, and probably in a lot of other creative worlds, but these are the ones that come to the forefront of my mind. They use that term, tough gig.
Yeah.
And I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, who's also a stand-up comedian,
Yeah.
and he talks about tough gigs and stuff. And I always wonder exactly what that actually means, because one tough gig could be completely different to another tough gig, and it could be a different interpretation to different people. If I were to peel back the layers on some of the toughest gigs you've experienced and the heckling and maybe some of the abuse that you might have received, what does that look like?
Yeah, there are two probably that stand out in my mind. One of them was the first pro gig I ever done. I was about 6 months in, and usually how it works on the comedy circuit is you do the open mic circuit, where really anyone can get up and go do it, do a 5 minutes. And usually the crowds with open mic gigs, they're quite supportive, because you think they're all new, something might be a 4 out of 10 funny. You'll laugh like it's 8 out of 10, because you're sort of encouraging each other, really, and that's great because it builds your confidence up. Trouble with that is obviously that when you're going through a scenario where people are just paying customers and they're not, they just want you to make them laugh, it could be a bit of a shock. So I've done my first pro gig in Billericay. It's not too far from where I grew up, really, and I just thought, oh yeah, like this is gonna go great. You know what I mean? I was like, this lot are gonna love me. I'm one of their own. What could go wrong? And I was only doing 5 minutes, and I went on there, and I've got loads of my family down, and because I was like, yeah, this is gonna be brilliant. First pro gig, great. My mates come, And for 5 minutes, I mean, you could just hear a pin drop. And the first 20 seconds is usually a good indicator of, right, how good's this gig going to be? You know, you give them your best joke, and then you can sort of gauge where it's going to go from there, you know, and how hard you've got to work, really. And yeah, in the first 20 seconds, I even my best joke, and it was just silence. And I was just like, only 6 months in, I'd not had the experience or the tools to try and turn it around. And I was just like, I'm banging trouble here. And yeah, I rattled on for 5 minutes. And then I come off there and I was so embarrassed. I just couldn't stay. I'd had all them people come to watch me, like friends and that. And I just drove home. And it was only a few years ago, one of my mates who came, and he's like one of my best mates. He was like, he goes, do you know what happened on that night? He was sitting there, and I could see him, he was like in the third row. And as I come off stage, he's returned to his missus and gone. And obviously he didn't know that he was one of my good mates. He's like, fucking hell, that geezer was shit. And yeah, but those sort of bad gigs, those tough gigs, they do make you better. And I say this to every new comedian, you know, if like people ever ask for my advice, or if they have a rough gig and I can see they're a bit newer, I tell them, like, you don't get better from good gigs. You really don't. You know, that shows that it's working, but you only get better from tough gigs. That's what I've found, you know.
And persevering.
Exactly, and persevering. And often, you know, you can be on that open mic circuit, or you can be on a certain level of comedy and smash it. But if you want to go to that next level, you're going to have tough gigs. And that shows that you're going up to that next level, and that shows that you know, you're working to get better. You know, so there was that one, and then there was one that I had quite early on. It's probably about a year in. There's this thing at the Comedy Store, just around the corner from here. They do this thing called the King Gong, which is like the last Monday of every month. And what they do is they have loads of new acts go up there, and they have free cards in the audience, and you've got to get through the 5 minutes without all three cards going up, and literally it is brutal. You cannot have a minute's respite. You could not even a minute. You can't even have 5-10 seconds respite. If they're not laughing, if it goes a bit stale, they're carding you off. And I remember I'd done it 3 times in total. And the first time, this geezer was heckling me, and I'd had a real rough day at work or whatever. And I just went for him. I just said, mate, if you think you can do better, why don't you fucking come up here and give it a go yourself? And really like laid into him. And then the crowd were like, wow, they was right on my side. And anyway, he starts walking up to the stage, and luckily, like the people running the gig could see what was happening, and they just gonged me off, because I was thinking, I just lost all perspective that I was in a comedy club. Yeah. And I'm thinking, as he comes over, I could watch the video, but you can see it in my you can see it like in my energy sort of thing. I'm thinking to myself, that geezer gets any closer, I'm going to have to chin him. And luckily they gonged me off and that didn't happen. And then after, I was really like, oh Christ, how could I'd lost all sense of where I was, you know. And that was tough. Because I'd never really felt like that on stage before then or after then, you know. So that was tough. Those have been my 2 toughest ones now. But like now, I've been going. Well, I'd say now I'd have a tough gig, but I still have got the tools to give them a show, have them laughing throughout. It's just really the level of laughs, really, and then certain, you know, how hard you've got to work to try and get it out of them. Because some, you know, now if the jokes are not working, it's cool. I can go into the audience. I can do a bit of crowd work. That will get them back on side. Do you know what I mean? But in the early days, you don't really have those tools, unfortunately.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about content as a comedian. Jimmy Carr and Ricky Gervais seem to be like a bit insulated a little bit. And I'll tell you why. They can go as hardcore as they almost feel like they can possibly go hardcore. I mean, they really push the boundaries, and I absolutely love that comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, Ricky Gervais, as in David Brent, is amazing, but his stand-up, in my opinion, is second to none. I do find Jimmy Carr very, very good, but Ricky Gervais is wildly brilliant in my opinion.
Yeah.
But in one breath, you get one comedian will get absolutely slandered for making a joke about a certain topic. But then if these guys say it, it's almost like they can just get away with it. And I'll tell you who highlighted it for me, Dapper Laughs.
Right.
He's been in here before, done a podcast together.
Yeah.
He was known for getting, cancelled for quite a long time, and he's been on this rebuild, and he's done extremely well coming off the back end of that.
Done well to come back.
Why is it that some comedians get cancelled and some people get celebrated?
I really don't know. I mean, I'd probably say with Ricky Gervais and Jimmy Carr, I mean, especially Ricky Gervais, he's almost too big to fail. Do you see what I mean? It's, to a certain degree, sort of say what he wants because he's Ricky Gervais, and you can't really cancel Ricky Gervais. He's made so much money. He's been so wildly successful. You can't really cancel him. I mean, that last like you mentioned there, probably obviously he's not at that luxury really. But I think a lot of it comes down to a lot of it. Yeah. I don't know. That's the golden question. I think a lot of it comes down to, you can talk about certain topics. It's the sort of the skill of how you talk about them now. And that's what sort of separates the top comedians, really.
I've got to say, the common thing that I see with Jimmy Carr and Ricky Gervais, they're super articulate. I'm not saying that Dapper Laughs or anyone similar to Dan is not articulate, but it's just the way these two guys come across and make it really articulate and almost braces you a little bit for that, then delivers it and then kind of justifies why they said it. I'll tell you one example, the Golden Globes. I mean, Ricky Gervais, when he goes into the audience and people that are winning Oscars and stuff like that and completely shoots them down. I mean, he talks about, people not being able to get on into his jet no more because of obviously what happened to him. And it's just so funny and so on topic. But at the same time, I mean, again, I think freedom of speech, and if you're listening to a comedian, then you should be open to anything that they say. That's why you're there. But I can also see from the snowflake people, like, if you say one thing, that should be you should be silenced. So I just find it a bit of a mad culture in the comedy world.
Yeah, I think Ricky Gervais, Jimmy Carr, they're really, really good writers. Above sort of all else, they're very, the way that they I mean, Ricky Gervais is very good at it. The way that he will talk about a topic which is taboo, and he'll sort of dance around a subject, without. I mean, I was going to say without offending people, but he will still offend people. There's a difference, isn't there, between sort of talking about taboo subjects and offensive topics. And there's a difference between joking about that, but then actually saying something which is, I think, just offensive for offensive sake.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I've had my comedy like described as edgy before. I don't particularly see it like that. I just think it's a normal how sort of, blokes like us talk really. But, I think it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, and but I just think Ricky Gervais is too big. He's too big to be cancelled, isn't he?
Yeah, I hear that.
So
the different pocket, like I said, street art. You got art, which is very broad, and then you got different buckets. You got street art, and then within street art, you got different buckets in that. Stencil art. You got your calligraphy. We were speaking earlier about Defo, who you're about to buy one.
Yeah. I might have to do an IOU on that one, mate, if that's all right.
But in all seriousness, going back to like the relevance of what I'm saying is within comedy is quite broad as well, right?
Yeah.
Because you can have all different styles. I don't even know what all the different buckets are, but like you've got things like the puns. Like some people are really, really good at doing puns. Some people are really, really quick. Some people have to take the time and stage what they're about to do, or is it realism, socialism, that kind of stuff? How do you kind of choose your style as a comedian?
That's a good choice, really. I think I think you got to just be true to who you are. In all honesty, you definitely find your voice and you find your style over the time, and I think that comes from just doing hours and hours of sets in different comedy clubs, you know. But I wouldn't say I've really sort of chosen my style or what. I would really just say I'm sort of just trying to bring my world to the stage, really. And whatever sort of style that someone would say that is, you know, whether they would say, I don't know, I've had a reviewer describe me before as like deceptively clever, laddish jokes. And it's almost like, I don't really see myself as laddish, but then I suppose, you know, from the outside, you think I'm a bit of a lad, or like think I'm laddish. I'm just trying to be myself, really. So, yeah, that's interesting. I think with stand up, what you're trying to get is you're just trying to be like the most like yourself on stage, you know. And then there are sort of little quirks to all of us, isn't there? Things that make us different, that are funny, that you'll try and amp up a little bit. Like I try and amp them up on stage, you know. But I couldn't tell you what those things are really until I'm on stage.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, fair enough. And I just like Michael McIntyre, going back to Lee Evans, these were people that would absolutely sweat buckets when they're on there because they're so animated and they're so kind of, I don't know, they're physical, they're just out there. But then you've got other
physical
people.
Comedy, with him too, yeah.
And then you've got other people who are just kind of so dry.
Yeah.
Like, it fucking works so well. And they deliver, like, who is it? Ricky Boyle? No, what's his name? Boyle?
Frankie Boyle.
Frankie Boyle, that's it. And he again is another person that can really step over the mark. And I think he's been slightly cancelled a couple of times, but seems to come back all the time like a bad rap. And he just doesn't care.
Yeah, if you want to talk about jokes, it'll get you cancelled. I think he's probably had quite a few, you know. But I think anything can be funny, you know, whether you're dry. I think anyone can be funny. I think what it comes down to, and this is what I think differentiates the best comedians, and also why people might find themselves getting in trouble for certain jokes. A lot of what I think stand-up comedy is I often think like the best writers, the people that are best at writing jokes, are often the ones that are sort of top of the tree. Do you see what I mean? And you can have different style and they can have all different styles, you know, like Ricky Gervais is different to Frankie Boyle, Frankie Boyle's different to Michael McIntyre and Mickey Flanagan and Kevin Bridges, you know. But I think what all those sort of top comedians have in common is that they're really, the jokes that they tell, it might not seem it on stage, so they might dress it up a certain way, but it's good writing, you know what I mean? They're clever joke writers, clever writers, you know?
Yeah. What's the art of delivering a good joke though? Because I could probably write out the worst joke in the world or the best joke in the world, but unless I deliver it right, it's kind of not going to resonate with the audience.
Yeah.
How do you get the delivery right, the tone, the pregnant pauses, and the parts where you need to heighten the word to make it funny?
That's repetition, really. You know, if I write a new joke, really until I'm properly happy with it, it's like tried it, you know, maybe near on 15, 20 times to not just get the words right, but the timing, the delivery, you know. You can often see sometimes, I think, if you go watch a comedian do new material, you'll see, it's them, but it's not quite them. You know, it's because they're doing new material. They've not got all the beats. They've got the premise there of the joke. They might have a couple of punchlines or whatever, but they don't have the delivery, the timing, and all those things merge together. Because, you know, when you watch a stand-up special, you know, on a Netflix or whatever, or the old DVDs is how we used to watch it. They've done that set hundreds of times. They know every beat. They know wherever a laugh is coming. Bang, bang, bang. I mean, the art of it is that they've said these words hundreds of times, but they're making it look like it's coming off the top of their dome, you know. Yeah. But yeah, it is repetition for sure.
And do you know the ones that I slightly admire, and maybe other people agree with this or not, but do you know like a good rapper can get up onto the mic and just spits a freestyle and you think like, why is that not on a record? Because that is amazing.
Yeah.
Or someone just picks up a guitar and bangs out a beat. Or when you've got a comedian who's so quick on their feet and they just come out with stuff, it's incredible. And going back to someone like a Jimmy Carr, he has people heckle him,
Yeah.
and he spins it back on them so quickly. And you know it's not rehearsed because this guy who's half drunk with his mates has just said something completely bonkers, and he somehow made it really, really funny and spun it back at him.
Yeah.
Like, is that kind of born in heaven kind of stuff, or is that manufactured on earth where he's had to practice that?
Yeah, that's something. I think some comedians are better at that than others. You know, I always think in terms of the crowd work, what you're talking about there, I think if you're funny down the pub or whatever, you've probably got a better chance at being good at crowd work just because you can think on your feet a little bit more. But again, that's another thing that you can get better at, you know. And the thing is with crowd work as well, because people understand that it's in the room and it's improvised and it's spur of the moment, it doesn't actually need to be as funny as a written joke, because people you almost get more points for that, of like, oh wow, he's just come up with that just like that, you know. So yeah, that is definitely a skill, crowd work. I don't rate that as highly as someone writing good material and good jokes though, you know, because I've seen people. Yeah, crowd. I just don't think crowd works as hard, and it might look like it's more impressive because it's like, you know, straight off the top of your head. But I don't think that's as hard as, you know, writing a good solid bit or joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It seems to be the way that when comedians get really, really, really big, very successful, they find themselves oscillating between their craft, but then going more into the kind of acting world and becoming a Hollywood superstar. Yeah. I mean, Lee Evans ventured into that world.
He was fantastic, wasn't he? Fantastic
Obviously,
actor.
David Brent, but they're slightly different. He kind of started there, Ricky Gervais, and kind of went backwards and forwards between the stand-up and TV. Who's the other ones? Like Chris Rock is obviously a natural one. Chris Tucker. Yeah. Kevin Hart. I mean,
Adam Sandler's a big one.
Yeah,
he started off as a comedian. I mean, he's come back to it now, but people just know him as a movie star, but he started off as a comedian. You know, so yeah, there's loads.
Is that kind of a goal for you, Josh?
Hollywood movies, be alright, wouldn't it? It'd be alright, wouldn't it? Yeah, I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's definitely not something that I'd imagine. I mean, cool show. Who wouldn't want to be in, like, you know, who wouldn't want to comedic movies, I reckon. But,
I guess where I'm getting to is being in this environment in a gallery setting down the corridor there. That's our sales division, and speaking to salespeople, we talk about ambitions, goals. Yeah, you know, having a vision for the future, etc. So what you're doing right now is great and perfect this craft, but also have one eye on where you want to go. Yeah. And you're perfecting your craft, clearly becoming a household name and very, very funny. But have you got one eye on thinking, right, I can take this transferable skill and put it into movies one day, or perhaps something else?
Do you know what? No, I'm not that ambitious, in all honesty. Like, I'd like doing my stand-up. I'm really passionate about that. Obviously, I do my sketches. Is probably how a lot of people, you know, if they was to know me at all, but that's probably what they would know me more from, because it's online, you know. But, you know, I'm going on tour next year. That's been a dream of mine. I don't have loads of belief in myself, in all honesty. You know, I'm sort of, you meet some people and they're like, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do that. I'm going to make it happen. I'm very much like, well, I actually think that those things are probably not going to happen, but I'm still going to work hard, you know, and I love doing the comedy and I want to really perfect that craft, you know. But in terms of these big things, like, you know, people go to you, the O2, that'll be you one day. Well, I don't think it will be, actually. And no, I don't think I'll end up in movies. But if I can be a touring comedian, you know, if I can create something as well, maybe which is a bit more longer form, like a sitcom, not necessarily for any sort of platform. I think realistically, I could maybe do that myself, put it on my YouTube channel. Those are more my goals. I mean, yeah, I'd love all them things what you just said there, but yeah, I'm not that optimistic.
I'm quite surprised I'm hearing that from you. Yeah. I thought, you naturally just brand any comedian as uber confident and probably very, very driven behind it, which I'm not saying you're not, but I feel like you're naturally humble. But I do think your time will come with these things?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it humble really. I just feel like I'm realistic, and I mean, listen, there's stuff that I've had happen. Like I'm supporting Mo Gilligan at the end of the year on tour, on his tour.
He's just been on your podcast as well.
He's just
right?
on my podcast, yeah. He's a
Part
top
one.
geezer. And I went his last time I went to watch, and I was watching that. I was watching a sport act, and I'm thinking, God, that would be amazing to do that one day. That really would be amazing. But I didn't think it would never happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it's necessarily being humble. I just think that I mean, some people, I've had people close to me before say, you know, you're negative when you think about things like that. I wouldn't see it as, maybe negative, maybe, but I wouldn't say it's being humble. I just feel like I'm being a realist, you know, and
you know your lane, basically.
yeah, and I just don't never expect them things, you know. I always work hard, and I'm one of the hardest working people that I know, especially in terms of comedy, you know. But I never expect them things, and I don't have like a vision board of like I'm going to aim that, you know, because if I've ever done that, and I learnt that quite early on in my life, like in my early 20s and that, if I ever done that, it would just go Pete Tong, you know what I mean? So I just work hard and try and get better every day, and try and enjoy what I do, you know, and I just get a buzz out of creating stuff, you know, and whether that will be me doing it on YouTube or whatever, or maybe one day something bigger, I don't know. I'm just going to concentrate on trying to create, really, you know, and carry on working hard, you know.
Yeah. Do you know, with like social media, I know, you know, you're not the oldest guy in the world, but you're kind of, I feel like, slightly in the same bucket as me, where we're both in and around, called it similar age. I mean, I'm obviously a lot older than you, but
I'm not 38 just yet, Steve. Slow down, mate.
But not too far away, where we both remember probably life before, slightly before social media.
It's better, wouldn't it?
There's pluses and downsides to it. And from a business point of view, I do see it's a plus, because having a podcast, if there was no social media, I wouldn't be able to do a podcast. And without social media, we wouldn't be able to get our brand and message out there for Woodbury House, our gallery. But the downside is there is a lot of distraction. There is a lot of things that affect your focus and your mindset and your well-being. And it can be a bit of a hindrance. For you, putting your content out there and having something which is so... people have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
Like music.
Yep.
Like movies, like anything in the creative world.
Yeah.
What's the typical stuff you get back on social media? What if I were to open up your DMs today on Instagram, what would I find?
A load of supportive messages, to be honest, and then the odd person calling me a cunt. Yeah. Yeah, no, the majority of what you get online is great. And do you know what? There's a comedian called Nigel Wong. You ever heard of Nigel Wong? He does Uncle Roger, the character. I mean, he's massive at the moment. And I sort of started out with, he'd been going for about 5 years or so in America. But when he come over to London, I sort of started out with him really, and knew him in the open mic circuit, and he's gone on to be this huge, massive success, you know. And I heard him say something on a podcast once, which is really true. Is like, unfortunately, when you get negative comments, well, it's a bit of a poison chalice. It's because if your sketch or whatever does really well, it goes out to a wider audience than what is just your audience. It goes sort of out that, you know, wider. And those negative comments are actually a sign of people seeing it who are not necessarily a fan of you, you know. So sometimes the negative comments is really just showing that actually you're doing well, because your stuff's getting out there wider than your usual reach, you know. But yeah, you get all sorts on there. I mean, they're funny. I find a lot. I don't pay much attention really, actually, to if I do a sketch and I write my sketch, I'll call up Louis, my ginger mate, who is in a lot of sketches with me. I called up our video guy Pete. I go, I've got this idea. What do you reckon? Blah blah blah. Yeah, let's do it. Let's film it. And then once we see it, I'm like, yeah, that's good. Then I put it out there, and then I sort of forget about it, to be honest. and then whatever positive or negative things people are saying, I don't pay too much attention, you know, because I always think if you read negative comments, that can really get you down, you know. If you read the positive comments, that can make you think, oh, I cracked it, you know.
So both sides of the coin is slightly a bit of a false economy.
Yeah, exactly that, you know. Because sometimes I'll put a sketch up and I think, that's not that strong. And then there are people that follow me that just really like what I do. And they'll be like, this is amazing, you know. And I think, that's not that good, actually. You know, and then vice versa. Sometimes I'll do a sketch, but maybe it's not that much of an accessible idea for people to really get. But I'm like, oh, this is really clever, and blah, 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 you know. And then people won't really engage with it as much. And I think, oh, no, that's actually a lot better than the other one, which got 3 times the amount of views or whatever. So yeah, you can't pay too much attention to comments, good and bad. I think you just got to do your thing, you know, carry on creating and do what's right for you, you know.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I feel like in your world, in the podcast world, being online and being a good comedian, it opens up the doors to a lot of good people.
Yeah.
One of the people that I've seen that you sat down with is someone that I would love to get on my podcast, a guy called Eddie Hearn.
Yeah.
What was he like to speak to?
So I filmed a sketch with DAZN, the boxing app, obviously, and I've always been a big boxing fan. It's probably like my favourite sport above football now. Love it, you know, because I love all the characters. You know, because football now, they're also media trained in it. It's a bit boring, you know. Whereas boxing, that's sort of encouraged, you know, if you're a character, they want to see that personality. So I love all that. And I've done a sketch. There's a great guy on YouTube, great boxing channel called Proper Boxing. And he does really funny, like comedic boxing videos. We sort of narrates over the top of them, usually about 10, 15 minutes long or whatever on YouTube. Go check him out if you've not seen him. He's hilarious. And I was speaking to him a bit, and then he started doing a bit of work with his own. And he goes, oh, Josh, I'm going to be interviewing Eddie Hearn, and I think it'd be great if you come as the Eddie Hearn character, because I do like this mad version of Eddie Hearn. I'm not an impressionist, so I don't sound like him, but I sort of could look a bit like him, and I basically just make him out to be like this really garish, like flash business, you know, real Essex wide boy, you know.
I think I saw the one where you were pretending to speak to Conor Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the phone, yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, and so I was done doing those, and then proper called me up and he's like, oh, do you want to come do it? And I was like, oh Christ, I don't know if I've got the bottle for this. I'm like, I don't know if Eddie Hearn even likes these videos. And yeah, I've got to go turn up to the Matchroom headquarters and, you know, and basically be him, and, you know, but he was good as gold. He was a great guy. He was really, like, good sense of humour, can really laugh at himself. And just how you'd expect him, really. I mean, my interaction with him was probably only about, half hour maybe. But yeah, he's just sort of just how you'd expect him. You know, what you see is what you get. He's super confident. He's super busy, and he can take the mick out of himself, which is good. A really good quality. I think, you know, if you can take the piss out of yourself, I instantly like someone then, because you don't take yourself too seriously, you know. And yeah, I was, you know, he was a good sport. Done an interview with him as Eddie Hearn, and yeah, he really enjoyed it. Well, he said he enjoyed it, and it seemed like he enjoyed it, but he might be thinking a little break. But no, it was really good.
I found that sketch that you done of him talking to Conor Ben is one of, you know, like you find something really, really funny, just tickles you, and you pick it up a few times.
Yeah.
Like if you're having a bit of a moment, like you're like, I want something to make me laugh, you go back to that. And and I found it really, really funny. One, because I'm into boxing. Yeah. I'm a fan of Eddie Hearn.
Yeah.
And I found it a little bit like Brent-ish, a little bit. Yeah. David Brent in there, like the pregnant, like looking at the camera and stuff. I think it was just fucking quality.
Yeah, do you know what? When I started doing that Eddie Hearn character, I think I was doing it too close, because I always used to watch Eddie Hearn, and why it used to make me laugh, because it was like Brent, he was like David Brent. And so I thought, I'll put a bit of that in the character. And then I think the first few sketches I'd done of him, I think it was too much like that. And I looked at it back and I'm like, yeah, that was too close. So now if I do the character, it doesn't really have those, awkward sort of Brent sort of like mannerisms. You know, it's just more full on. I'm fucking loaded. You know what I mean? Deal with it, sort of thing. But yeah, definitely, you're 100% right there.
So you said you had Mo Gillian onto the podcast.
Yeah.
You're going to be warm up act for him.
Yeah, I'm
did you
going.
mention?
He's got a world tour at the moment called In the Moment, and yeah, we're doing that at the end of the year. We're doing Hammersmith Apollo for 4 nights or so. Going to Dublin, going to Manchester.
Yeah.
Manchester Apollo, which is like something mad, like 4,000 seats or whatever. It's just crazy, you know. And yeah, he's what's great about Mo Gilligan is he really tries to help acts come up. You know what I mean? He's done it a lot for, you know, on the black circuit, you know, like trying to shine a light a bit on, you know, because for years the black comedy circuit didn't really get much attention. Some phenomenal acts, but for whatever reason, you know, they weren't getting the opportunities on TV, or they weren't, you know, there just wasn't much of a focus on them. And he's really helped bring a lot of those great acts to the fore and go like, well, look, it's not just about me. Have a look at these guys as well. They're brilliant. And yeah, and he's done that for me. Obviously, I'm not a black comedian, but he's done it. You know, he's really helped me a lot. You know, and I wouldn't have had so many opportunities. Is because you've got to be good at doing what you do. But really, you're only as good as the opportunity someone gives you. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I can tell you something about so many acts that are on a circuit, that have been on a circuit years, that you go watch them and you're like, what they've done up there is unbelievable. How are they not a household name, you know? Just because they not had the opportunities, you know? And yeah, I've been really fortunate in the fact that Mo has really helped me in that sense. You know, I've done his latest show when he had that on Channel 4. I've done a set on there. Yeah, he's honestly, he helped me with loads of opportunities, and then to top it off, yeah, he's taken me out on tour with him, which I can't wait for, you know.
He has, in my opinion, a completely sort of different style comedy to yourself.
Yeah.
And his impersonations are really, really, really funny.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them, like when he pretends to be a geezer and then he goes to a yardie, two polar opposite characters, and he pulls them off so well. And is that a real good skill in itself, to kind of be this chameleon where you go from one kind of persona to another?
Yeah, definitely. And some people do it better than others. I mean, I do a few characters. I've got like, especially when I started putting things up on social media, I used to do the East End hipster, who was like this real lefty social justice warrior, you know, lives in the East End, but really went to private school and all that sort of thing. Lives in Shoreditch now because he thinks he's cool and urban, you know what I mean? And thinks he fits in, you know, one of them ones. And other characters do like the grafter, who's basically like this, almost like a drug dealer from the home counties, you know, wears, you know, like this nouveau riche clothing, like, you know, Givenchy, whatever you call it, Balenciaga, you know. So yeah, but I'd say I do those characters because they're quite synonymous of places where I've grown up and stuff like that. But you know, you can, there's some people out there, when they do character comedy, it's almost like they're one person there, and you meet the character and it's like a complete different person, and they're just so good at it. So yeah, that is a real skill. And Mo's great at it, you know. He had the geezer character, which is just really funny. Yeah, really funny. Yeah, just absolutely nailed it with that. And then, yeah, I can't think of really many of his other characters now, but the geezer is the one, obviously, that we all largely know and what made him famous, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was going to say, because, you know, going back to Ricky Gervais, who's one of my favourite comedians, certainly David Brent is phenomenal, but he's obviously done extras and he's done so many other things.
Yeah.
Is there a risk when you do impersonations as a comedian that you fall into the actual character and then you're stuck as that persona?
Yeah, I think so. I think that is, if you do it too much. But then some comedians are character comedians, you know, and that is their thing, you know. They create characters and they be them characters. I mean, look at Sacha Baron Cohen, for example, you know, likes of Borat and Ali G, and just unbelievable. So, you know, you don't have to be...
He has cracked it on so many different levels.
But he's, I think, Sacha Baron Cohen, without a doubt. I mean, we've had some great character comedians come out of this country, you know. But Sacha Baron Cohen, I can't think of anyone better, to be honest.
He timed certain things so well. I mean, going over to America, and I think they're catching up now with the sarcasm, but like he would go over there, and you know there's sarcasm there, and he's been a bit dry sense of humour, and they did not fucking get it. They didn't know.
Yeah.
And especially, what was the character when he's gay?
Bruno.
Oh my God. He went to Texas and just going to the cowboy rodeo places.
Yeah.
And he was mocking them, but they didn't get it at first, and then they cotted on. And I think he pushed the boundaries. He had so much guts and determination, and he was versatile through his characters. I mean, from Bruno to Ali G
Well, that's
to
it.
this, they're like completely different.
They're
people.
completely different. And then if you saw Sacha Baron Cohen in an interview, you'd think, no, that's not the same person.
Articulate and intelligent.
Yeah, just unbelievable. And that's the thing with me when I do my characters. I think it's not a million miles away from actually, me as a person. So I'm not really a strong character comedian. I think I'm better at a stand-up, and doing the sketches. And a lot more of the sketches I've been doing lately have been me as myself. You know what I mean? I mean, a bit of a conscious effort because I'm going on tour next year, my first stand-up tour. So it's like, I want people to buy into me as opposed to not so much the characters, because you don't want to do loads of these character sketches and then you come watch me do stand-up and you're like, hold on, where are the characters, And I think if you've done too much of that, you probably feel like you'd have to give it to them,
Yeah. I know we sort of covered this earlier, but because I'm always intrigued. Like when I've interviewed a lot of boxers, right?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different with boxers because boxers are boxers, right? They are celebrities, they are sports people, but they're fucking fighters. So you don't really want to piss them off because they can actually fight.
They can fight, yeah.
But whereas like footballers might get a little bit more heckled and a little bit more abused because they are in the public eye, they earn a shit ton of money, and there's a lot of opinion around football, whether Arsenal's the best or Chelsea's the best or Man United's the best or whoever.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of conversations with the footballers about like the fans coming over and what's the cult, like what they like towards you. And most of the time they are good, but you're going to get the drunk men predominantly come over to you and sort of push their luck a little bit. And as a comedian, I do feel like you must be on the firing line a bit more because I don't know, it's like sometimes drunk men, especially young alpha male type men who are in front of their birds, in front of their other mates, and want to get one up. They want to feel like they're the bee's knees in front of their peers. And go to a comedian, don't feel too threatened. You're not going to get bashed up like a boxer.
Yeah.
And say something about one of your jokes. I mean, there must be some awkward moments where people are coming over to you and they're just getting all up in your face and they're just being a little bit...
Do you mean as when I'm on stage or when I'm off stage?
Maybe a bit of both.
Yeah, a bit of both. I mean, on stage, what's great is because no matter, how much someone heckles, what hecklers obviously don't realise is you're on stage, you've got the mic, and the majority of people there to see you. So it's like, you're a real advantage, In terms of, people coming up to you sort of in a negative way, I've not really had that too much, in all honesty. I think I probably had it once a bloke just like, off his chops, just coming up, and I was at this gig and he kept coming up to me, wanted to talk to me, and I think, no, this geezer must follow me, like, must be like a real, I don't know the word fan, but he must follow, what I mean? Must be into what I do, And he was still hanging off me like at the end of the night, and I'm like, oh mate, and everyone had left, and I think, God, I need to get rid of this guy. I'm trying to talk to my friends, And anyway, he was. I mean, but bless him, he was really out his nut, But then I found out next day that he'd been saying all like horrible things about me in this WhatsApp group that my mates are in, So it was weird. That was strange, and that's the only time I can really think that it's been negative face to face. And even then, the bloke, seemed to be like, like he wanted to be mates with me, like he was on me, so that was a bit of a strange one. And then funny enough, I've done a sketch recently called Pub Pest. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a geezer who's really out his nut in the pub.
Yeah. And he just appears everywhere.
Yeah, and he's in his face and he won't leave him alone. And that was basically based off of that bloke that night.
Really?
Yeah. And I I didn't give him his name in the sketch, but the character I played was the geezer that was like, you know what I mean, at his nut, wouldn't leave the other geezer alone. And I didn't give him his name, but it's a very similar name to his. Just one letter different.
All right, well, that might be a bit of a clue. So, bar the tour you got coming up, supporting Mo,
Yeah.
and then your podcast, what's going to be kind of next for Josh James?
Yeah, I'm just got all thoughts on the tour really, and I make these sketches which are about a minute and a half long, but really I think my longer goal is to try and make something longer, something that looks a little bit more cinematic really. You know, I've got an idea for this sitcom, which is a bit of a quirky idea. Don't know if people are going to really go for it, but I really want to try and make it. And you know, typically if you're a comedian, you go through the process of, you know, writing a script and sending it off to production companies, you know, working with a production company, trying to take it to a TV channel, see if anyone will have it. But I think, to be honest, I just want to make it myself and put it out there, and see what people think really, you know. And then if anyone else, like a TV channel or whatever, if they want to work with me after that, that's cool. But I want to make this thing, because I've seen a lot of things where people write stuff and it never really gets made and you spend loads of time in it. I've got this idea that I'm really passionate about, something sort of a little bit linked to something that's happened in my life that is important to me, you know. And I think, I want to go make it, you know. Why not go do it myself? You know, I don't want to ask for someone's permission before filming the thing that I really want to create, you know what I mean? So I want to do that. I want to do a really good, you know, tour, and yeah, just carry on working hard and not get too ahead of myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough. This is my last question. So when I first started my first ever business when I was younger,
Yeah.
it was predominantly a sales company. And to keep the sales guys motivated and focused, I come up with a bit of a mantra. And the mantra goes like this: be happy, never content. Now, if I were to ask Josh James, what does be happy, never content mean to you?
Be happy, never content. What does that mean to me? God, that's a good question. I don't. You know what? I don't know really, because I can't say. You know, trying to be happy is something that I struggled with. I struggle with on a day-to-day basis. You know what I mean? And I've done for years.
Do you mean like it's like depression?
Yeah, I've been. I mean, I don't know how to call it depression, but I've been like not been great. You know what I mean?
Like anxiety and stuff.
Yeah. Again, I just not felt great, and I'm not, as I said probably earlier, I'm not a real positive person. I always think the worst situation, negative, sort of positive. You know, come across, I suppose, positive and friendly, but like I always think of things negatively of what is worse going to happen. Do you know what I mean? So be happy, not content. I struggled to give that a meaning, to be honest, because I'm trying to be more happier, and I'm trying to be happy and content with what I've got. But then that might be a motivating factor why I work really hard, is because I'm not content, and I maybe think, if I can just carry on working hard, then I'll find happiness. You know what I mean? So I don't know. You're gonna have to ask someone who is happy that question, I think. But no, life's all. You know, I'm trying to paint it out. Probably work. You know, I'm all right. Yeah. My life's good, so I can't complain.
Good man. Well, look, I really enjoyed having this conversation.
No,
with
thanks
you.
for having me on, mate.
Once you become the next Ricky Gervais, or once you become the next Lee Evans, or
Yeah.
etc., which you're on your way, mate.
Yeah.
Then I'd love to sit down with you once you sold out at Wembley Arena, got your own TV sitcom, and the world's your oyster.
Thanks, man. Well, you believe in. I think you believe in myself maybe a little bit more than I do, but yeah, mate. And if those things happen, I'll be back here to have another chat, and hopefully buy a bit of this art.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
mate.
mate.
Be happy, never content, and make sure you're subscribing, everyone. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
once
Steve.
again.
Thanks,
Cheers,
mate.
Cheers.